the politics that is tearing this country apart that's not the United States of America that people love. It's certainly not the Commonwealth of Virginia.
I am a transgender woman. We won because I am a transgender woman, because I am a reporter, because I am a lifelong resident of Manassas, because of my inherent identifiers, not despite them. I never ran away from them. I championed them.
With all due respect to Mr. President, you will not do that in the great state of New Jersey.
I'll tell you this, the people who write and say, well, we can tell you what is going to happen in 2018 based upon these recent elections, they'll be wrong.
The question is whether or not we produce a result and reverse that trend next year.
Are you worried about next year?
No. I like a good fight.
Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Bruce Johnson. This is Off Script. Republicans this evening might be feeling the political ground shifting a little bit beneath them. Democrats cleaned up in elections in Virginia, picking up 13 state house seats, winning by a wide margin, the biggest prizes of governor and lieutenant governor. But Republicans lost races across the country, and tonight they've got to be asking how the Trump factor will affect their down ballot races come next year. Republican Senator Jeff Flake talked about what lessons the GOP learned.
I do think that we do better with a more inclusive message, and so I think that is something that we can learn from last night.
Do you think your party is learning that from last night?
Well, I don't know. It's just been 24 hours or less, so I hope we do. I think that was the case before. We'll have blips. You can rile up the base and win an election here or there, but in the end, you've got to appeal to a broader electorate. To suburbanites and others, and I don't think we are right now, at least not the administration.
Okay, we've got a panel waiting to discuss all of this. Conservatives, progressives, Democrats, Republicans, they don't agree on a lot, and that's fine. Tim Young with the Washington Examiner. It's a publication with conservative leanings. That's Michael Fauntleroy. He's a political science professor at Howard University. Sean Blackman with the podcast By Any Means Necessary. Angela Morabito, she's with Stand United, a petition platform for people with conservative values. So let's get to it. Big night for Democrats. Let's start with you. You're the newest guy here. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, if I was the Democrats on a national level, I don't think I'd be rolling out the champagne just yet. I mean, given the broader context of what was going on with these races, I don't know that it actually constitutes any sort of real pushback on the Trump administration or on right-wing politics in general. I mean, if we're talking about Virginia, it's a pretty purple state, so I don't know that a Democratic win there is terribly surprising. And in the case of New Jersey, I think the folks there were just so fed up with Chris Christie and that whole thing that anything associated with him or his politics, I think, was simply not going to fly.
Okay, hold it. I like that. Democrats, don't get too cocky about all this. Okay, let's go with you.
Well, I think that's appropriate, but it went about as well as it could possibly go for the Democrats. And just to put that in a little context, Ralph Northern, a relatively uninspiring candidate, got 300,000 more votes than Barack Obama did in 2012. Okay. All right, and so while it is true that the Democrats shouldn't be breaking out the champagne, it's also true that we may have seen the first inkling of a roadmap for the Democrats next year.
Repudiation of Trump here? Is that what we're talking about? I think
there's always some of that. When you look at what happened with the voters, the people who voted for Democrats, they were overwhelmingly opposing President Trump. But again, there are other sort of contextual factors in the states that are going to have much bigger play into what goes on in 2018.
Tim, your take on what happened last night?
It's amazing. You bring me on here to argue with Democrats, and I have agreed with them on the past 4 shows I've been here. There's no big deal here with New Jersey and Pennsylvania, who both went to Hillary Clinton. Chris Christie was a terrible governor. I think everybody agrees with that. He was going to get unseated. The Republican Party lost that seat, and the Republicans really haven't accomplished much in Congress. So this isn't just a repudiation of Trump. This is the voters just so tired of nothing getting done that they're just shifting a little bit.
Angela?
Well, Tim is right. 2 blue states stayed blue last night, but the Republicans did lose significant ground, and that's because there's nothing tangible yet to show for the Trump administration. People are vaguely aware that a wall is possibly going to happen. People are vaguely aware that Neil Gorsuch is on the Supreme Court. What the Republicans need to get done by the end of this calendar year is tax reform, because that affects people immediately. We know that the healthcare battle just isn't going to go the way we want it, at least by December 31st, but tax reform might, and that would be a big difference that people feel on a personal level.
A lot more women running, okay? Transgender people winning. You got African Americans winning in places they haven't won before. A lot of diversity there. What do we read into that?
Well, I think I'm sort of perhaps most intrigued by Vi Lyles down in Charlotte, but perhaps even more so than her, actually the election of Braxton Winston to the Charlotte City Council, precisely because his profile arose.
For people who don't know, Braxton Winston is?
He's a protester whose profile arose from the protests in Charlotte following the police killing of Keith Lamont.
African American?
Yes.
Okay. Michael?
I think the Justin Fairfax win right across the bridge in Virginia is very notable. And I talked earlier about sort of a door opening to 2018, and that door includes more African Americans, more college educated whites who voted more for Democrats yesterday than they did a year ago for Trump. And so we're seeing the potential for a sea change. We're not there yet, but it's definitely something that can happen.
I look back on the estimated 500,000 women that descended on Washington after President Trump took office, and they vowed then to run more women for office. Did we see some of that?
I think we did. I think it's great too that more and more there's more diverse candidates out there. But it also speaks to the political parties themselves, both Democrats and Republicans, elevating people up inside where they weren't before.
Okay. What do Republicans do? I mean, what did they learn yesterday? Is there anything that can be fixed before next year?
I think Republicans, if they got the right message, they're going to know stay the path, get tax reform done, get health care fixed, do something on immigration. Something's better than nothing, which is what we've effectively seen at this point. And I think as far as running more diverse candidates, Republicans are or at least they should be, blind to all of that. If you show up, we shouldn't care if you are a man, woman, what race you are, if you are heterosexual, homosexual, transgender, it shouldn't matter. And I know that to some people it does, and that, in my belief, is entirely their mistake. But I think diversity is so natural, and if you're looking for the best leader, of course they're not all going to look the same.
Do we have the Danica Rome soundbite? Talk about an upset, a win. Let's take a look at it.
What do you say to the young girl, the young boy, whoever it is sitting at home who may be transgender, watching this right now?
If you feel safe, if it is okay for you, without anyone pressuring you into doing something you don't want to do, it's okay to be you. I know what it's like to be that closet case. I know what it's like to be too afraid. I know what it's like to cry myself to sleep about it. It's okay to be you.
We run that by because I want to know how far we've come. If you had told me 10, 15, 20 years ago that a transgender woman would be winning office, unseating a longtime incumbent Republican in the Virginia House, I'm like, you're crazy. Michael?
Well, history is the best teacher in that regard, and I think you're right. But it also speaks to the fact that some of the culture wars have been decided, and those candidates who insist on continuing to run on culture war issues are in big trouble.
Yeah, that's the point I was making. Go ahead.
I agree. I'm supposed to be arguing with these guys.
You're going to talk your way off of this program.
Yeah. I tell you what, this culture war, especially with gay marriage and trans folks, it's over. Like, the Republicans should not be taking up those issues anymore.
Right.
But they can't help themselves, and therein lies part of the problem going forward for next year.
In some ways.
If the Republicans want to continue to follow the path that you just described, then I think Democratic strategists all around the country are going to be pretty happy because they can win.
What do you mean in some ways?
Well, I think we learned last night that no one is a single issue voter on statues, that people might like a statue, dislike a statue for myriad reasons, but if you're a single issue voter on that, I don't know who you are and why you are blind to every other issue in this country. We spent so much time, especially here in Virginia, well, across the bridge in Virginia, talking about that issue. I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm saying that the existence or non-existence of a statue does not affect someone's day-to-day life.
Okay.